Hi, Sagittarius. It's Denise with Divine Soul Astrology. Today I'm here to discuss the horoscopes for the month of May. And May is a beautiful month. It sure is. And the sun will be in Taurus. And yesterday was the Scorpio full moon. I'm recording this on May 2nd. And you can check that out. That is in your 12th house of endings and release. That's going to be very important to you. It sure is because the Scorpio full moon is already about transformation and rebirth. So it's showing up in a house for you that is related. It's a showing up in your 12th house is also related to Scorpio. Yes, it is because they're in the natural chart. They just are. So you can check that out, right? And also I have Uranus that I have uploaded excuse me, for Uranus entering Gemini, rather. And that Gemini is in your opposite sign. So you're going to want to check that video out as well. Gemini or Uranus is going to be there for 7 years, 7 years of change, innovation, and progress, really. But Uranus, that video is showing us what will be kind of torn down in order to make way for innovation and growth and progress. All right, so you can check that out. And so let's get into this, Sagittarius. And the sun is in your sixth house of work, health, daily responsibilities. The sun is also in your house of obstacles. Yeah, and I wanted to leave, right? But I'm a Sag as well. And so, but yeah, but the sun can show us what needs to kind of be overcome. It can show us what's important in our what our responsibilities are and kind of what our obstacles are. It can be, as I said, health or work or how we're kind of running our daily life, right? Our daily routines. It can show us that, right? The sun will enter Gemini, your opposite sign. And for me, that's, that will be a little bit better for Sagittarius, in my opinion. And the opposite sign is always showing us something important. It always is, because the opposite sign, is what we need to merge with the higher expression of our own sign. Yeah, and that will be important to you. It definitely will be, especially as the sun, um, as the sun enters Gemini, where that house is in your own natal chart. Yeah, in your own unique chart. So the sun in Taurus will emphasize your finance and well-being as well, because that's what Taurus represents, right? Until it enters Gemini on May 20th. And so, Mercury is entering Taurus today. Yeah, interesting. Mercury is our thinking, and Mercury represents Gemini, but right, it represents our thinking in your opposite sign. And so Mercury is wants us to understand something, and Mercury is in a or analyze, it does. Mercury is the brains, but it is conjoined with Chiron. And so Chiron is actually in Aries, so Mercury is in Taurus. It's in the next sign. It's a kind of a hidden. Some people will call that, or some astrologers will call that a hidden conjunction, but they're still working together. Yeah. So Mercury is in Taurus, and Taurus is in your sixth house of work and your responsibilities and your obstacles, really. But it can be about your health. Remember that, because your health can pose obstacles. It sure can, right? It wants us to really think about what's good for us, right? Or how to make our life better. That's what kind of, that's what Mercury wants us to do in Taurus, in that sixth house, right? And Chiron, excuse me, yeah, Chiron is actually in your fifth house. Wow, in Aries, your fifth house is how you shine. Um, and also a sense of yourself. It can be your self-expression. There's something changing there for you, Sagittarius, right? With that conjunction, it's helping you overcome maybe the way you think about yourself and maybe your work as it relates to your work. Because remember, Chiron sits in, um, actually, Mercury is in your sixth house of this work, but Chiron's in the fifth house, yeah, of how you shine, how you express yourself, your creative pursuits, yeah, as well. So something very interesting there is for sure. Mhm. And so Chiron is also making a trine. A trine is a 120 degree configuration. A trine is something very supportive because it always happens between two signs that are in the same element. So that's why it is supportive and kind of a flow, right? So Chiron showing up in Aries in your fifth house of self-expression and creative pursuits. It can also have to do with your work because the sun is related to how you express yourself, your career sometimes, how that's how we sometimes express ourselves, right? Or how we see ourselves as well. And the sun is also, yeah. And so Chiron's in that house of the sun, basically, but in Aries. But it'll be making a trine to Black Moon Lilith. Lilith is our shadow side, what we need to see and confront and move away from, what we kind of need to take control of, right? Because the shadow side has to do with sometimes what we don't see or our lower expression, right? And Lilith talks about, Lilith is sometimes what we're angry about, but Lilith can be like our power that we want to unleash on the world, right? And Chiron is in that house of the sun. So very interesting there. And so, yeah, Black Moon Lilith is in your house of the self, in your first, is in your sign. You're being more authentic, showing your talents. You are. It's giving you an opportunity or an ease or supporting that where you can be more authentic. Lilith wants you to be more authentic. It's like, who cares about what people think? And kind of who cares about what you've done in the past? Because Lilith can be related to our shadow. Who cares what we did 5 years ago or last year or really even last month? If you are able to see yourself as receiving the light, Lilith is really the opposite of the light, right? And so Chiron is something healing, and it's in your house of like your self-expression. So there's something changing here and, growing. You're being more authentic. You're showing your talents. You're showing your true self. Wow. Or showing people who you really are. As I said, Mars rules your house of self-expression and your creative. Yeah, Mars is ruling Aries, right? That fifth house of self-expression. It's in its own sign. So this is really supporting your authenticity. Good for you, Sagittarius, right? And interesting because somebody made a video on why it's been so hard for Sagittarius, right? An astrologer, of course. It was like a year ago I saw that video. I don't remember who that was, but um, yeah. And Mars never apologizes. Mars is like, hey, I'm in charge here, right? The planet represents Aries and Scorpio. And the Scorpio doesn't apologize either. No, it doesn't, and neither does Aries. So it is saying, hey, I'm doing this. Mars represents the will to act. Yeah, and the courage and the desire and the drive. So Mars is very powerful there. On the 16th, we'll have a new moon in Taurus, and I will do a separate video on that. Um, and Taurus is actually your sixth house of work and obstacles. And so the new moon will be something where you're transiting out of that, basically. There's something new and hopeful for you, or you're planting seeds. It can be to overcome these sixth house obstacles. Could be in work, could be health. That's what the sixth house represents. But good for you, right? And Lilith is getting that trine. I love that trine with Mars and Black Moon Lilith. Yeah, I love that. Will help you to do that, right? Mercury will enter Gemini. Remember, Mercury rules your opposite sign. It sure does. And Mercury also rules Virgo for you. Virgo is your your 10th house of, wow, Virgo rules your 10th house of career, or Mercury does. So very cool. Yeah. And there could be a lot changing for you because, as Mercury, Mercury actually Uranus enters Gemini, which is associated with Mercury, and where Gemini rules, Mercury rule, excuse me, where Uranus enters, but the Sun will enter Gemini, so it's all connected, is my point. So Mercury is entering its own sign on May 17th. If I haven't confused you too much, yeah, astrology it can be a little complex. It sure can. Um, but Mercury enters Gemini on May 17th into your house of partnerships. This is also your house of business and clients, right? One-on-ones, it can be, right? A client. So the seventh house is the house of one-on-one because it's a house of partnerships. It's also the house of where you create harmony and balance and things that we don't agree with. It can be opponents, but it can be also just things that we don't agree with, right? It can be about people who argue with us or just people who don't kind of, maybe even people who don't like us. And sometimes for no particular reason, which is another video for another day, right? There's always people who may not like us for whatever reason, right? And that's not the focus of the horoscope today, but this Mercury, entering Gemini on the 17th into that house is going to show us a lot. Yeah. And, that will also support your clients in your business, Sagittarius, your relationships. It sure will. Um, yeah. And this is also, I'm just wondering here, Mercury, if it will be in dignity in, if it will be in dignity here in entering Gemini. Let's have a look at that. Um, Yeah, it is peregrine, so that's a good thing, right? And that is neutral. Because the dignity and how comfortable a planet feels in a particular sign is also important. So we have Mercury. I just heard somebody out there, yeah, kind of banging the gate, right? Mercury will enter Gemini on the 17th, supporting you. I'm sorry. And Gemini is also, this is also in your house of legal matters or things that need mediation or kind of things that need reckoning, kind of, right? Your house of opponents and or settling, right, is also in the house of arbitration and mediation, not meditation, but mediation, although meditation always helps. It sure does. And Venus, not Venus, but Mercury, the this our thinking here. Um, and the Sun are both making a sextile to natal Jupiter. Jupiter is still in Cancer, and this is in your eighth house of transformation. Yeah, yeah, very interesting there. Yeah, it is your eighth house of transformation for you. Let's make sure here, right? Because I don't have it in my notes. Yeah, it is in your house of change, profound change. It's also in your house of Jupiter is also that's a big one. Yeah, Jupiter because Jupiter wants you to grow and expand and see your high and like realize your higher purpose, right? So that Sun and Mercury making that sextile to natal Jupiter is very important. Yeah, it sure is, right? Mercury is in your house when this happens, Mercury is entering, it will be in Gemini, and Gemini is once again your seventh house of that relationships or trying to create a balance. Very interesting there, yeah, and harmony in your life, right? It can be with anything. Remember that. It doesn't always have to be with a person, right? And the sextile, but the sextile will ask you to, be kind of engaged. The sextile is always a social aspect or configuration. And so, if we are willing to engage with the sextile, kind of like having sex, right? You have to engage in it, right? Can't just dream about it. But, once you kind of engage with that, that's will be where the opportunity is. Yeah, there can be an opportunity there. It's interesting about what somebody's doing in that with that gate out there. Um, and so here, yeah, so let's continue here, Sagittarius. If you've had any health problems or problems with work, that is likely to change with that sixth house there. You have any problems, and so that sextile will um, call you to engage or be proactive. All right, Venus will enter Cancer on May 18th. That is in your house of transformation, intimate relationships, and understanding deep psychological themes. Venus can support your work, your relationships with other people, and how you create harmony and balance. And it will be moving into, nurturing Cancer. But Cancer is not just about nurturing, it is about the safety in our life and the people that we love and that we nurture as well, right? And Cancer also represents how we kind of nurture ourselves. Yeah, it does. So that's going to be, and so does Venus in a way. So that is going to be very good. I feel like Venus is either not exalted in Cancer, but it's in a very strong place. Let's look at Venus in Cancer here. Let's see if it is. I feel like it is either peregrine, which is neutral. But yeah, it is. It's still in a good place in Cancer. And Venus is a benefic. So Venus will be supporting you in your eighth house of transformation and seeing things that were hidden, Sagittarius. It's really important for us to understand things that kind of have been either been holding us back or deep psychological themes that we have kind of carried with us. Because remember, the eighth house is rebirth. It's about, rebirth and endings, life and death and transformation. And so intimate relationships too, it could show, and Venus is also about our relationships, could really be showing you something different about how you have been in your relationships, right? Your romantic life can change, your finances can regenerate when that happens, Sagittarius. This is exciting because I'm a Sagittarius sun, right? Remember, I was talking about somebody, there was an astrologer here talking about why things have been so tough. I feel like it has to do, I forget why. It was a long time ago I saw that video, so I'm sorry about, I don't remember what he was, what planet was kind of doing that, moving into what house. I don't remember that. I feel like it had to do with Saturn, but right. And so, yeah, this can help your business relationships and your well-being as well. And lastly, we're going to have the full moon um, in your sign, and that will be at the end of the month. And I'll do a separate video on that. That's going to be in your first house. And remember, the full moon brings transformation. It brings endings and new beginnings, things that are culminating, right? It can also show us and illuminate what we haven't seen. The full moon can illuminate for us. So that's going to be very interesting. And that will also have to do with Gemini, your seventh house, because the full moon always opposes the sun in the opposite sign. And I always talk about how the opposite sign is very important to us because astrology always asks us to merge. The opposition is always emerging, right? It's kind of a balance that wants that the astrology wants us to engage in, to create balance, kind of, and to rectify. And so that will be in your seventh house of relationships and your seventh house of creating harmony and balance for yourself. All right. So thank you so much for watching today, Sagittarius. If you want your own reading based on your own chart, it's highly fascinating. It's highly empowering and transformative, and especially the way I approach the chart. So you can check out my website below. Please like, share, and subscribe, really helping me to get to the next level. And yeah, hit the bell so you can be notified of that, of my next upload. So thank you so much, Sagittarius, for joining me here today, and I hope you have a great one.